Hey everyone, welcome to the Sackhoff Show. I am your host, Katee Sackhoff. Thank you so much for joining me today on this beautiful Tuesday. We have a fantastic guest for you lined up, and I can't wait to get into that. But I want to remind you all to like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and also to stick around for the hindsight, where I force my producer to actually talk to me about things. It's quite fun, so hang out. But let's get into it. This week's episode is with my friend and co-star, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, who is from Kim's Convenience and like pretty much every Star Wars show in existence at this point. He is wonderful. You will know who he is. He is one of the kindest, most sincere, normal, humble, beautiful people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting and talking to. And I'm so glad that he's in my life and that we actually know each other now. But I'm going to get out of your way because it's such a good episode and I really, really want you to get to know Paul a little bit better. So I'm going to do that. Enjoy the episode. And here is my friend, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. I'm really excited to see your face and like to have you on the show. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh my God, I was over the moon when you asked me. I've seen some of the guests that you've had on, and it's rarefied air. I feel like I'm breathing up here. It's just such an honor and a privilege. I've been a huge fan of your work for decades, and it's just like this incredible honor to be deemed worthy enough to chat with. And so I'm really, I appreciate this opportunity, and I'm very, very thankful for this.
Well, bless you. That's awesome. We never really had much of an opportunity to get to know each other because we worked together for like a second. Yeah. And I think it was a day where I was running back and forth to multiple units. But we just spent a little bit of time at a convention together. And by a little bit of time, I mean like on a panel and then in an elevator.
Yes.
But as soon as we walked out of the elevator, I thought to myself, that guy's super interesting and I want to talk to him some more. And that's when I asked you to be on the show because I really just wanted to get to know you more. Yeah, because I know very little about you.
Cool.
I mean, I know this stuff like that everybody else knows, the topical stuff, but I want to know about you.
I'm an open book. Ask away, and I'm more than happy to share. I like to talk, as I think a lot of people have come to realize. And so, I'm more than happy to share. And again, I'm honored and flattered. It's just like I feel like Cinderella at the ball a lot of times with what I've gotten to do with regards to being on Star Wars and to working with fantastic actors and directors and designers and to be part of something that I've been a fan of since I was 5 years old. And so a lot of this seems very, very surreal to me. And so it certainly isn't something that I would have expected even as little as 10 years ago.
Really?
Times have changed tremendously since I broke into the business as a young actor fresh out of theater school. And so it is one of these things where, when you're a kid and you fantasize about being in Star Wars, for example, and then, as you grow up, you realize, okay, well, that's a make-believe world and you can't really be in it. And then seeing that, there are actors who act out the story, but never thinking that you could become an actor because it's never been an option presented to you either through society or through your parents. For example, I had immigrant parents, and they're very much like 5 things in life. You can be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, an engineer, or failure, you choose, type thing. And then discovering that, maybe I can go and be an actor, and then finding that joy and that hope again, and then realizing that once you're in the business, because you're an actor of color, you're severely restricted in terms of the type of work you're even allowed to audition for. And so to
Mm,
go through those various cycles of ups and downs and hopes and fears and things dashed, and then suddenly being there,
mm,
it really is quite the roller coaster ride.
yeah. Well, I want to talk about so much of that, but I think what leads us to all of that is what made you want to be an actor, because you said you're the child of two immigrants.
So here's a fun fact. My last name in Korean is Lee. So it should be Lee Sun-Hyung. Sun-Hyung is my Korean name. And when
Okay.
I started acting, my dad said, well, you have to put the Korean name in with your regular name so everyone know you is a Korean. And so I thought, okay, I'll do that, right? And it turned out it was a real good help because there were a number of Paul Lees in the business. And so it was a great way to sort of differentiate. So there was that. But in terms of yeah, my heritage, I was born in Korea, but 3 months after I was born, my parents immigrated to Canada. And so I
Okay.
have pretty much lived my entire life in Canada. And
Huh.
so that's kind of been my background. So my Korean is actually pretty lousy. And so it's one of those things. And being born of immigrant parents, it was a very much a struggle for my parents to sort of keep the heritage there, the Korean and stuff alive in me because I wanted nothing to do with that growing up. I wanted to
Hmm.
be like all the other kids. I wanted to be normal. And so there was that sort of disconnect with my parents' heritage. And I never felt like I fit in there. But then growing up in Canada, in a primarily, Caucasian sort of community, I
Yeah.
didn't really fit in there either. And so I was back and forth. And so because my parents were immigrants and they were working back in those days, you could leave your kids alone. You could
Yeah.
leave them unsupervised. And so, the television was my babysitter. And so
Hmm.
I grew up watching so many shows I shouldn't have been watching, but
Yeah.
consuming all this content and falling in love with all these fantastic worlds that were available to me with a click of a button. And
Hmm.
so it was that love of like consuming stories and then wanting to tell my own stories, but never realizing I could tell them or even consider I could tell them on a level that could actually make it to television. The stories I like to tell were when I was playing with my action figures or when
Hmm.
I would write stories for school assignments or whatever, or drawing cartoons. They're all so very immediate and very, very small in scope because they were just for me. And then later on for my friends. And so when I discovered in university that I could actually, pursue the craft of acting, that blew my mind. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, I can take a step into a much larger world. And I fell into acting completely by accident.
Hmm.
And,
God, I hear
you
that so
know,
much from people, actually.
yeah, it was like on a lark almost. I saw I was going to university. Um, I wanted to be with my girlfriend at the time. I moved out to Toronto away from my parents, and I had to take some courses, and the drama program sounded like fun, and so I auditioned for it, right? And it was
Hmm.
just this horrible, horrible experience because
Really?
I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never taken any theater courses or drama classes or anything like that. My parents would know. They're like, "That's a waste of money. What are you talking about?" And
Yeah.
so when I remember my first ever audition was at the University of Toronto for the University College Drama Department, and it was a group audition. It was really a group workshop, but I don't know. I didn't know what I was expecting, and I go down U of T. It's in the basement of one of the main halls, and there's like 40 white kids and me, and I'm like, oh, okay, one of these things is not like the other, right? And I'm looking around, and they're all stretching. They've got their shoes off and they're all grounded and warming up, doing the vocal warm ups. And as an actor now, you look at it and go, okay, I know what they're doing. But as a complete outsider and a newbie, I went in, I was like, I thought this was going to be acting. It looks like we're going to play like a sport or something, right?
Oh, I don't know what they're doing. What are they
Oh,
doing?
so these are all theater kids who are like warming up their bodies and their vocal cords and working on the enunciators and their diction and articulation and whatnot. And I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, when in Rome, do as right. So I confidently sort of take off my shoes and start doing the soccer stretches that I sort of
Yeah.
knew. And then thus began a 2-hour odyssey of exercises which I didn't understand the purpose of. And if you have never done theater school warm-ups or exercises or played those games, they're crazy. Like they are just unhinged. Like we are just making noise and acting all silly, and I don't know why we're doing it. And it was as the day sort of went on, I felt more and more disconnected and more of an outsider. And I just
Yeah.
felt like people were laughing at me, or I just really like this was my own baggage that I was sort of heaping onto myself. And it all kind of culminated. There's this one exercise, it was called transformation exercises. And we all had to line up at the back. It was a long hallway, like a long room. And we all had to move across the room, and you would make a movement and a sound that would accompany it. And as you made your way across the room, the movement would evolve and the sound would evolve with it. And it would transform into something completely different. And looking at it now, I understand the whole point of it is to just sort of stay connected with your body and organically find that transition or that movement that's grounded and have it accompany with your voice. But I was 18 years old and the only Asian kid in this room, and I just thought, I don't get it. And I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. This is the loony bin, and I've made a horrible mistake.
Yeah.
And I just, at the end of it, I just thought, well, what a wasted afternoon. I felt humiliated, and we all had to stand in a big circle. And the final assignment was the instructor gave us all the same line to deliver. And that line was, what a terrible, miserable, rotten day. And we each had to step into the center of the circle and deliver that line in whatever way we wanted. And I kind of thought, I got this. I think of the whole
You like
day.
just lived it for the last 2 hours.
This is my takeaway. And I remember kids going in and doing their own version of it. And some were very dramatic and some were comedic. And I just marched into that center when it was my turn. And I glared at the instructor who was running the session. And with as much vitriol and venom as I could muster, directed it straight at him. And I delivered the line with such fierceness, like it was like so real. And then I spat on the ground afterwards and I left because I thought, you won. Asian kid is out. I'm done, right? So I got into the program. And it was one of those things where I thought, oh my God, they must have seen something. That's when I learned that acting was far more than just memorizing lines and pretending. It was a craft, and it was intoxicating and exciting. And I wanted to learn so much more about it. And I was absolutely awful at it. But that's what kept me at it. It's just like, you got to start from somewhere. And that's a thing that fed me. I became almost obsessive about it. There was something I needed to do.
It's interesting that drove you, like that the fact that you're saying that you weren't good at it drove you, where I could see that would break a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's that the people that it breaks, they're not looking at it as a craft, because a craft is something that you continue to work at. You're not expected to be great at it from the very beginning. I find that really interesting, actually. What do you think? Do you think that that's what it was? That because you looked at it very, very clearly as a craft, and that it didn't break you?
100%, because, it was something that I think initially I had completely underestimated and thought this is going to be fun, and it'll be a walk in the park, and we'll all get to pretend and tell stories. And it was a huge wake-up call for me, but that really excited me. Because it was something that I thought was going to be so easy and yet was so challenging. It intrigued me even more. And I am a huge, huge proponent of reps. Be it whatever you do. If you want to get better at something, you have to invest your time into it. There are those of us who are fortunate enough to have the natural ability to slide into something and be able to pick it up right away. And it was something that I knew I loved telling stories, and this was a new way of being able to tell those stories. And I wanted to get good. Like there was a desire within me to get good at that. And I knew I would just have to invest that time and go in and do that. And, if you're practicing a baseball swing, or if you're practicing your, hockey and skating or shooting or whatever, it's something that you need to just sort of physically get into and mentally get your head around and constantly be working at to get better at.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe acting is not something that you can just fake your way through. I mean, some people do, but it's very shallow, I find. And if you want that depth, you want that groundedness in a performance, even if it's, it doesn't need to be that deep. Like if you're solidly anchored and rooted, you can carry so much, and the audience will be with you, and you'll just be there. And it's good storytelling as well. So I'm a huge proponent of that.
What did your parents say?
Well, let's just say they weren't thrilled.
I mean, and a doctor you are not,
no,
Paul.
But I've played many doctors on television, and that's what I kept telling my mom. I might not be a doctor, but I've played a number of doctors, from ER doctors to surgeons to scientists.
Were they super smart, like stereotypical doctors too?
Yeah.
Like you didn't play the bad doctor.
No, well, once. Just once. The inept doctor that missed a diagnosis.
Oh, man.
It's a range. It's a range. They weren't thrilled. I would
imagine.
Yeah, I get it, because they had sacrificed so much of their lives to give my sister and I an opportunity to excel, to have better options and opportunities, so that we wouldn't have to struggle like they did. And for them to, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I would have the courage to do what they did at their age, which is to leave your home, your profession, your job, your friends, your family, to a completely different country where you do not speak the language, where your education does not have the same amount of credit that it has in your homeland, and not be able to work in your chosen profession, to give your kids these huge opportunities, and then to watch your kids kind of go, well, I want to be an actor, right? And, I choose a life of suffering.
Yeah, you hear about that a lot, actually, that and it's something that never occurred to me, that you hear a lot that, or I've been told a lot, just striking up a conversation with an Uber driver or a taxi driver, that back before they immigrated, they were a doctor, or they were a lawyer, or they were, like you're talking about, had this we would consider a very successful career in education, to then come to another country where, like you said, it means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That is terrifying.
Right? And so they were terrified for me, because they thought, what kind of a life is he going to have? And then there's another layer to this too, because I didn't realize this, but my dad, he had an older brother, and he doted on him, just loved him to pieces. And I got a chance to meet his older brother once when I was in grade 6 with my dad. It was my first trip to Korea. We went for 3 weeks, and I was terrified because I'd lived a sheltered life in Canada, and we were in Korea. I didn't speak the language. My dad was visiting his family. I met 13 cousins I never even knew existed before. So it was an eye-opening journey, and I met my dad's older brother, my kunappa, which means big dad, basically. And, he was really cool. I loved hanging out with him and this and that. And, we went to movies, and he showed me some really, really inappropriate movies at the time. Just like there was one movie in particular, it was a David Cronenberg film that he showed me, and it was called Rabid. And that movie was actually, Cronenberg had cast a porno star in the lead role. And the whole idea was, I think her character gets into a car accident, and the surgeon does this sort of weird experimental sort of surgery on her to save her life. And she ends up getting transmitting rabies to everyone, and it becomes viral and this and that. Really, really,
oh my God.
It's a Cronenberg film, right? So it's really messed up. And I'm in grade 6 going, whoa, this is so weird, but cool. And he's Canadian, right? Because that's what my uncle kept saying, Canadian,
Mhm.
Canadian. Like,
Mhm.
that's not, anyways.
Like,
So
not the Canadians I've met.
exactly. And so a couple of years later, he died. And he had had a
Mm.
heart attack and he died. And, we were in Canada and nobody in the family told my dad, and he was just devastated, heartbroken, because he loved him so much. And it wasn't until I was in my third year of university, third year of acting program, my dad and I were having this huge fight over what I'm doing with my life. And he's like, you cannot be an actor. Actors are this, actors are that. They have no money. They're always broke, blah, blah, blah. And I'm yelling back at him and say, you don't know what acting is. You don't know what actors do. And that's when I found out. My dad said that his older brother was an actor. I had no idea. And he was a really well-respected actor at the time too.
Really?
Yeah, I had no idea. And, my uncle was, according to my dad, a very well-respected actor who was very, very prolific, but he was always broke because he was
Mm.
always either giving his money away or investing it in other shows, or just like people owed him money for shows that he did, but he was constantly, he was always broke. And my dad was terrified that I was going to
Mm.
live the same life and die penniless. And, it was like one of those, and that's when that really kind of dropped. And I thought, oh, okay. And just to sort of explain to him that North America is different from Korea, like in
Mm.
terms of the acting and at least the business of acting was different. But it really gave me a really keen insight as to where my dad was coming. And that's when I realized it wasn't because he didn't respect what I was doing or what my choice. He was just terrified
Mhm.
that I was going to live a life of hardship and suffering and wouldn't be able to support myself because he'd never seen any real examples of successful Asian actors in North America.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, when did you look around and realize that this was going to be harder for you? Or did it occur to you?
No, I did. When you're in school, you are sheltered. You're
Yeah.
blithely unaware of what the real world is. And in hindsight, looking back at it, you kind of go, well, all the markers were there, right? It's like, how many Asians did you see growing up on television, Paul? It's like, well, there was Sam on Quincy. There was Sulu, Bruce Lee in the, Green Hornet.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and that's about it, right? And so, but you're not aware of that. And in school, I was just like, you're naive and you're brash and you think, yes, I'm going to be a star and I'm going to have a lead role on a television series. And I'm going to grow my career and it's going to be fun and awesome. And, yeah, that did not happen. Like once I was out
Mm.
of school, how do you get work? What are you even allowed to audition for? And it was so frustrating because I was being held back because of the color of my skin. Even though I had grown up, for all intents and purposes, I was as Canadian as anybody else. I
You're
sounded the
Canadian, yeah.
same, everything. But the color of my skin. So casting the agencies, they were like, we're not looking for Asian performers, right? We're not looking for that. Or we already have one Asian person in the cast. We can't have more than one. People get confused or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just this huge, bitter pill to have to swallow to realize that I was being I was being like hemmed in because of the way I looked, right? And it's a terrible thing. I mean, it's one thing if you're given an opportunity to audition for these parts or get a chance to go for it, but it's another thing to not even be allowed to do
Yeah.
that. And that's, for me, the biggest thing about this push for diversity and inclusivity isn't just cast me because of the color of my skin. No. It's give us the same opportunities as everybody else does to land these roles. That's it. Let skill and craft and talent decide all this, but don't let the color of somebody's skin do that. And it's not about taking work away from other people. It is about giving other people the same opportunity to land that work. So I would not have believed something like this would have been possible even as little as 10 years ago, because it has
Yeah.
changed substantially since then. We still have a ways to go, but we're still we are light years further ahead than I thought we would be 10, 15 years ago when I was grinding out, trying to find work.
How did you navigate the industry then with that sort of in front of you?
It became very obvious early on that I wasn't going to be considered for a lot of these, lead roles. There was nothing being written with a lead Asian actor in it, maybe a supporting, maybe a recurring sort of quirky friend or nerdy friend or any of these shows. A lot of the parts that I was booking were expositional,
Yeah.
really disposable characters, often very stereotypical in terms of we need somebody smart and disposable, hire an Asian guy. And I was good at it. And it was one of those things where I had to shift my perception, where it was like I knew I wasn't, the chances of me being a lead on a show were very slim, but I loved acting and I wanted to do it. So how do I keep doing that? I keep getting these expository sort of character actors. And so I thought, well, I'll focus on that. I will be excellent at doing that. So, and these are roles that are readily available. So make yourself so good at it that you become the guy that they call in to do that. And that's what it was. It was just a shift in perception, because I just wanted to work. And the more I worked, the more I made it my pact to learn as much as I could so that eventually I could gain enough knowledge so I could start telling my own stories. And that's what it was too. It was just learning, getting as much information, making those connections with crew members or other directors and doing that work and other performers and being so good at it and so kind with other people too, that they would remember you and want to work with you for later on. And that's what it was. It was just that shifting. And I'll say I came to that later on because at first I was just really angry about it. Hence my bitter Asian dude sort of handle on Twitter and angry up on Instagram. It was just, I was young and frustrated and angry. And I just felt like, it's like to point out the systemic racism just felt like shouting into the wild. It was apparent, just nobody cared. And so I gave in to the dark side as it was. And I bitched and I moaned and I complained about the system and I was angry about it. And that felt good for about, 5 minutes. And then you surround yourself like that kind of individual. You draw other people like that too, right? So you just have an angry mob that doesn't do anything productive. At the end of the day, you vent and you bitch and you moan and you villainize people, and it's easy. It's so easy to lay blame and have scapegoats and to not look within, right? It's just so easy to it's everybody else's fault but mine. I am the victim. And then I found that after a while, that was pointless. It was getting nothing changed. And it was a tremendous waste of energy. And it was poisoning the people around me. And my friends that I had just did not want to hang out with me. And, it really started to change when I was like, I'm not going to expend any more energy on that. I need to be more positive. I need to use my powers for good and to just start building things and creating things instead, which is harder, but infinitely more satisfying, and then once, and that's infectious. And I'm finding that, as I've gotten older too, more people are drawn to that as well, because who wouldn't want to be part of a community or something that builds each other up and lifts each other up and supports and inspires rather than tear things down. And like you see this in the online community right now. There's a whole subset of quote unquote fans who are just wanting to light the world on fire. That's so boring. It's so like, I don't want to listen.
Predictable.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want to listen to like a top 10 reasons, things that you hate or why you hate this. It's like, I don't care about that. If you hate it so much, why are you spending so much time? And I used to do that, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just like, it's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. Just don't watch it. It's simple.
I say that to people all the time.
Right. So
when did you see it start to shift?
Work-wise on film and TV, there were shows like Fresh Off the Boat, which kind of
TV happened before film, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was Fresh Off the Boat. That started, and that even wasn't without controversy, because Eddie Huang was very unhappy with how they kind of toned down the family in that, right? Because it's based on his memoirs, very personal, and it's pretty harsh. You know, some of the stuff that went on with the physical abuse and whatnot, I mean, that was all sort of glazed over, and he was very, very upset about that. And then he later sort of softened his stance on it because he came to realize that this was the first of its kind. And to make it accessible for people, I mean, it was a huge step just to get it on a network and to broaden it to that audience. So he's since sort of come to peace with it. I think, but I understand his wanting to really, really sort of tell it like it was and just be, you know, take the gloves off and just be honest with it, not hyper idealize the family.
Oh, because that's cathartic. Like that's you know, that's super therapeutic to sort of like the good, the bad, the ugly, get it out there. And then when you have to tone it down and make it more palatable so people actually watch it, you know, I could see where that would be frustrating.
And that's a compromise. And as frustrating as it is, I think that's kind of the call. Because if it's the first of its kind like that, it doesn't matter how critically, I mean, we know this. It doesn't matter how critically acclaimed and what a darling it is in the critic circle. If audiences won't watch it, the show will not survive. Right? Yeah. You could have, there's examples of this in Canada, left, right, and center, where it's a brilliant show that nobody is watching.
Yep.
And so it is that whole, it's chicken and the egg. You got to get people to watch it. And then I think the idea is once you get everybody on board and they're rooting for the family, then you can start to change it up a little bit. And then they start to go, oh, okay, it's the evolution of the family. And, you know, you have people who are invested in the show. And then you can start doing that. But I mean, I think that was a show that kind of paved the way. Of course, Kim's Convenience then came along shortly after that, and two completely different sort of families as well, but sort of on the, you know, the two sides of the same coin. And then I think the big thing was Crazy Rich Asians. Was the big one because, and, you know, there is a cynic in me that I don't want to take away from the absolutely talented cast, the storytelling, you know, the design, the production design and whatnot. But that movie, the reason why there's a big sort of, there was that Asian movement was it made money.
Oh, yeah.
A ton of money.
A shit ton of money.
Right?
Yeah, and, absolutely.
You know, same with Black Panther. The first of its kind in terms of a Black superhero with Black designers and a Black society that has been untouched, unsullied by colonialism and whatnot.
Yeah.
And to see the potential for that. And, you know, if that movie doesn't make money,
it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. And it's the same thing. And so it was interesting too, the after effect of, you know, all that money. And people, BIPOC artists have been saying always, there's an audience for these kinds of movies. If you make a good movie like this, the audiences will come and they will spend their money.
Yeah.
But no one's ever believed them until now type thing, right?
It's funny because they also said that about, it's very, very different thing, but they also said this about female driven movies with women over the age of 40, like female casts. Like they've been saying this for years. Women will go watch these movies and they don't listen until, you know, there's a massive success. And then they're like, oh, I guess women go to see movies.
We're going to do it because it's right. Not because it made a ton of money. No, we're going to do it because, yes, it's the right thing to do. This is what we're going to do. There are many talented voices out there that we need to give them, you know, and it's so funny. It's so, I mean, and that's why I feel really cynical about it, because it is one of the, if it were the right thing to do, it would have been done decades ago. But the simple fact of the matter is money talks. And these movies made a ton of money. And there's no coincidence that, you know, the following year during pilot season, there were at least 10 or 15 shows with looking for Asian casts. But here's the trap. And here's what happens. Each of the taglines for all the shows, of the log lines, had the word crazy, rich, or Asian in them. So it's so bloody derivative. After a certain point, it's like, well, this is a money. We're just going to keep cranking out the same stuff. And that's the difference, in my opinion, between something that just is trendy versus an actual movement. Because if you keep trucking out the same bag of tricks every time, the same kind of story, audiences are not dumb. They get pretty bored pretty quick. And they'll go, no, we've seen this before.
And then it goes away again.
Exactly. And that's why it's a trend.
So you actually don't necessarily think that, because the argument from my perspective, which is, you know, a perspective, but potentially not the right one, is is that, you know what I mean? Like, well, they're there, you know, content is there, representation is happening. That's important. It's better anything than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is that that's actually not the case. Like, if the stories are all derivative and they're all the exact same, it's very clear that they're checking the boxes because of the money, and eventually it'll go away.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be a cycle where everything is fresh. And he's kind of, you get exciting new faces and storytellers and audience. But if you're telling the same story again and again, it doesn't matter who's in them. Audiences are going to get bored. I mean, you look at the Marvel universe, the superhero phase where you couldn't get enough. But now, after a certain point, there's a bit of fatigue, audience fatigue that comes through. It's like, okay, more superheroes. Okay, how much of this lore have we seen before? How much of this, that? And I'm not saying that they're bad movies. All I'm saying is the audiences, we've had a steady diet of them for years now.
Yeah.
Where are we going? Where are the new grounds? I mean, you've got the new movie, Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine, which is, by all counts and purposes, going to revive that whole genre. But because they're telling something fresh and new. And to a certain extent, that's what I mean in terms of, for the BIPOC community, you cannot keep telling the same stories of a community and marginalize them and ghettoize them into one type of story that they're allowed to tell. As the outsider looking in and overcoming that, or this, it just, and it also will prevent laziness from happening too, right? I always say to the younger community too, it's like, for BIPOC artists, yes, we're getting these opportunities now, but it's incumbent on us not to get complacent and kind of go, well, I got it made now because Asian is in, and I'm just going to get cast and stuff, and I'm going to make all the money, and that's it. It's incumbent on us to be more excellent and tell better stories and different kinds of stories and explore different avenues with these opportunities that we are being given. Lee Isaac Chung, who directed an episode of Mando season 3, his first sort of big film was Minari. And that was, starring Steven Yeun. And it was like a coming of age story about a Korean immigrant family in Arkansas.
Yeah, it was such a good movie.
And it was fantastic. But can you imagine if Hollywood just said to Lee Isaac, this is it. These are the only movies or stories that you can tell now. That's it. Just the immigrant experience. That's it. He wouldn't have been able to do Mandalorian. And I was delighted to hear that he directed Twisters. So he's like moving on a lot. And that's the kind of, there's a calling card, which is great. But I would love to see people not just get hemmed in, but be able to expand and explore even more now that they've been given an opportunity to sort of showcase their talents, to not just get limited to one hit.
What do you think? Do you see something that is very easily sort of implemented right now that could actually continue to push things in the right direction?
Honestly, it is. And it's a hard one. We need, the studios and the producers, we need as much diversity behind the camera as we have in front of, the people who make the decisions. And we need studios to start making some bold decisions and to start going off the beaten path and to stop looking at test audiences and formulas and ways of constructing things that are just designed to hit peak, maximum audience sort of enjoyment, so that we can rake in as much money in the box office. That's why I think we have so many remakes, and it's safe, it makes money, and the audiences. There's nobody taking any risks anymore. There's not those really off the wall sort of movie making like in the 70s and whatnot. And I was having a conversation with an actor before, and it was this interesting theory that he had that all the tech companies are doing the most interesting stuff right now because they can afford for these sort of off-the-wall stories to lose money because these tech companies make money selling products or this or that. And so like the entertainment side is nothing. Whereas the other studios, that's all they do. So if they get a bomb, they're screwed. And so they're doing the safe sort of formulaic thing that has been working sort of for the last 100 years.
Right.
And that's why, it isn't as exciting anymore, right?
Yeah.
And I would love to see that. Like, instead of making one gigantic $300 million movie, right? How about making $10 million really great storytelling movies, right? How about
Yeah.
that? Make it.
Agreed.
So
I completely agree with you. It's partially because I'll never book a $300 million movie. Like,
never say
but
never.
the $10 million movie, potentially. Well, it's why you see such great content over at like Amazon, because, I'm paying Amazon single-handedly, keeping them in business with the packages that I order to my house. They don't need me to watch The Boys,
Right.
because I just spent $8 million on, boxes being sent to my house.
Ditto
so
Apple
they can
TV.
take risks.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to talk about how Mandalorian came to you. Like, how did Carson Teva come to you? Did you audition?
No. It was an offer, which really blows my mind. So you need to go back to 2018. Kim's Convenience was 2 seasons in. It was a critical darling in Canada. Audiences loved it. We were starting to make a little bit noise in the States. And I got invited to the Unforgettable Gala in Los Angeles. And the Unforgettable Gala is a celebration of Asian Americans in the media.
Okay.
And I got invited to go down, but I didn't want to go down by myself. I'd never been to LA before. I was kind of scared.
Really?
Yeah, I'd never been there before.
You had never been to Los Angeles?
No.
You live in Canada.
I know. It was one of those.
It's right there, Paul.
I know. And I'm an actor too. It was a byproduct of having watched a number of supremely talented peers of mine go down for pilot season.
Yeah.
And work their asses off for 2 months or 3 months, and then come back to Canada with the tail between their legs, broke and shattered. And I thought, well, they're way better than I am, and they're more skilled than I am. And, they're white. And what am I going to do if I go down there? I have no money. I have what am I going to do? So I made up my mind that it's the only time I'd ever go to the US to California, Los Angeles, is if I got a job down there. Because I thought, I'm working up in Canada. I've got steady enough work, not a ton, but I'm working, right? And, I'm a Canadian citizen, so it's a little bit easier for me up here. So yeah, that's the reason why I just never went down. There was just nothing for me there. And so that's why I was a bit terrified when I got this invite. And so I went down. And
who did you take with you?
So I said, I'm not going to go down unless the rest of the cast gets to come down with me.
Okay.
Right. And so Yvonne Fetzon, who is the executive producer on Kim's Convenience, he very, very graciously sponsored everybody else to go down there. He paid for their tickets. And so we all ended up getting invites. He paid for our flights down there, hotel accommodations, which was awesome. Stayed at the Beverly Hilton. It was like, oh my God, I've seen this on TV. And it was just crazy sort of experience. And while we were there, this woman jumps in front of me and she says, Paul, do you remember who I am? It was Deborah Chow. Yeah. So Deborah's Canadian.
Is she really?
Yeah, she's Canadian, right?
I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah. And I met Deb 30 years ago now when we were both working for a bankrupt theater company in Toronto. She was there she was working as an arts administrator, and I was there working on a government grant to learn arts administration. But the theater went bankrupt. And so the season had been canceled. There was nothing to do. And so basically I was relegated to taking out garbage and repainting rooms and, doing all these really menial tasks. Anyways, Deb wanted to become a filmmaker, and she had asked me, said, hey, you want to be in the short that I'm shooting? I said, sure. Yeah, I'd love to. And so we shot One Day in Chinatown. I was playing this detective, this gumshoe detective who was looking for something. It was all MOS, so no dialogue.
God, that's the best job in the world.
Oh, it was so much fun, right? It was just, and then Deb left. She's gone, and I didn't see her till she jumped in front of me.
Really? You didn't see her for 30 years?
She disappeared. And so I was like, Deb, what are you doing? what are you doing here? She said, oh, you remember that film that got me to Columbia Film School? And then I tried to get a job as a director in Canada, and I did a couple of little shows, but then I went to the States, and then her career really took off. And then she said, so I'm working on the show called The Mandalorian. Have you heard of it? And I almost died because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I was like, you're kidding me? Of course I've heard of it. She says, oh, great. Because I've been trying to get in touch with you because Dave Filoni, do you know who he is? And I was like, yes, yes, I do. Dave Filoni is a big fan of your work from Kim's Convenience. And he wants to write something for you. And I was like, you gotta be shitting me. Like, come on.
Not only do they want you in it, they want to write something for you.
Yeah.
That must have been insanity in your mind.
I could not believe that. But at the same time, too, I also had the wherewithal to go, that's a lovely sentiment, but I know how the world works. And people say one thing and they do it with the best of intentions, but I know that the business has a way of screwing you over sometimes. Yeah. And so, but it was lovely to be in that conversation, to even be considered. And I thought, oh my God. And I remember saying to her, you do realize I have like 9 cosplays, Star Wars cosplays at home. She's like, really?
You're like, I have action figures.
So I told her I was a member of the 501st Canadian Legion Garrison. And
are you really?
Yeah, I joined in like October of 2018 on my own because I'm a nerd.
Oh my God, the more I get to know you, the more I love you.
Yeah. So she said, show me these pictures. And I showed them to her.
Yeah.
And she said, I'm going to send these to Dave. She sent them to Dave. Dave responded and he, laughingly saying, oh, he can just wear his costume to work type thing. Anyways, she invited me to a set visit. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. She said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I'm going back to Canada. And she said, oh, that sucks because, Dave really wants to meet you. And I was like, can I come back in a couple of weeks? She said, absolutely. So I came back 2 weeks later and I got to visit the set during season 1. I met Jon Favreau. I met Dave. I got to see Deb do some work. I got to see Dave direct an episode. I saw Grogu for the first time, like walking down the ramp in Pelimoto's, and I remember looking at and just losing my mind, going, what is that? What is that? And I remember Dave looking at me.
I can't believe they let you on set and all of that.
It was Dave who greenlit everything. Yeah. Like he was the one that got me through because, Disney they weren't letting anybody visit the set, but Dave got me in. And it was just like a tremendous experience, and just like, I thought I had died and gone to heaven, nerd heaven. That was it. And I was sworn to secrecy, and I was like, no problem. I would rather die than ruin the surprise for anybody, because I knew that was going to break the internet. And I went home with a stupid grin plastered to my face. Had dinner with Dave. Dave gave me a guided tour of the costume shops, of the sets. I got to hang out with Josh in the props department and like geek out over like, heritage props that had been handed down from Return of the Jedi and stuff. And just like was in bliss. And then 6 months later, I got a call from my agent saying, so Lucasfilm called and then they want to know what your availability is.
Were your agents like, what's happening?
She was very much befuddled. She's like, well, what have you done? What have you done? Right? And it was incredible. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was for, but it was Lucasfilm. And I was like, I will burn down forests. I will kidnap pets. I will steal whatever it is I need to. I will do anything. And I was under the impression that I was going to be under 15 pounds of latex. One of those, we'll put him in an alien costume. He'll die. And
right. Dave's just doing you a solid.
Nerd just, tears. And it's like, I got to be on it. And then it was like, I found out later on that it was that we're going to see your face. And in fact, you're going to be a pilot. And I was done. I was just like, how did this happen? And then, going to the States for the first time, they got me my working papers to work on the show. Didn't have to audition, went down, met Carl.
Well, even the U.S. government doesn't say no to Lucasfilm.
Right? It's just, it was so fast.
Does he check boxes? Have you looked for Americans for this role?
Yes.
Sure. Great. He has his work permit. Come on down, Paul. Sure thing, Lucas.
I'm blessed. I was just so blessed. And it was just like such a whirlwind. Meeting Carl for the first time too, because he was the first director I worked with in the States. So that's how the part sort of came. There was an availability. I think initially they had tried to, they'd offered the part to another actor. The story that I heard, they offered it to another actor who turned it down. And then it was actually John who said, well, what about your friend Dave? So.
Do you know who it was that turned it down? You don't have to tell me, but do you know who it was?
I've been told who it was. And
do you think they regret it?
I don't think so. I think
really,
I think it's one of these things where, they are very well established, which is why I think they were like, no, it's okay, right? And if you're not a huge fan of the series, they can't afford to pay. They couldn't afford to pay him what he's worth. And because it was like one of those, it's like, no, I'll take a pass on it this time. It's like, that's my game. I'm like, thank you very much. I'll take that.
You take Star Wars for a different reason. You know what I mean? Like, I remember doing Clone Wars for many, many, many years. And doing it because for the love of Star Wars and the love of Dave Filoni. And the fact that I was just so happy I had something I was in that my nephews could watch, because like everything I'd done was like wildly inappropriate. And I remember my manager, no longer together, but my manager at the time constantly telling me that I should no longer do this show, that they're taking advantage of you, they're not paying you anything, all of this stuff. And I was like, I would do it for free. Like, I'm not walking away from this character. Like, she's mine. You know what I mean? And when I booked Mandalorian, I literally kept saying, we're in agreement, though, that I need you to say it again. That, like, this would have never happened had I listened to you, the person who's supposed to manage my career.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, you know what I mean? You don't do Star Wars because you're, trying to get rich and famous. You do it because you love it. And then if it turns into something great,
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, I was just supposed to be in 2 episodes, and they liked my work enough, or I didn't screw it up enough that they were like, oh no, never again. Right. And to get
how many episodes have you done?
So I did 2 in season 2. I did 1 episode, blink and you miss it, for Book of Boba Fett. And I thought I was shooting season 3 of Mando, but then I found out.
Well, so did you and Ming-Na Wen both did.
Right. I was like, oh, okay. I was chuffed because it's like, that means I'm on 2 Star Wars shows, right?
Yeah.
And then I did 2 in season 3 and then 3 of Ahsoka. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your character just keeps getting bigger.
They keep giving me more and more to do.
They do.
Which is awesome.
Did you talk to Dave about who Carson is, or did you create backstory? Like, do you have like an entire life for this person?
So I started doing that. I had a phone call from John and Dave initially, and it's a very funny story, that phone call, because I missed it the first time because I was eating KFC. So it was it doesn't sound that bad. It's not like I was naked in front of the TV with a big tub of chicken.
That was not what I was envisioning, and now I am.
I'm so sorry.
It's just you naked eating KFC.
No, that's
like watching like hockey in Canada or something.
That was just the one time. It was a really, really...
Or trailer... Yeah. What's that Trailer
Park Boys. That's right.
Yeah. That's in my head now. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
For the visual.
The gift that keeps on giving. I was thinking more Homer Simpson in the swimming pool, digging around for that donut. Not the donut, the hot dog. But
well, now that's in my head too. Okay. But, so you missed the phone call the first time.
Yeah. And, John was they didn't give me a lot of details. They just basically said, he's from Alderaan. He's like John said, he's like a New York City cop. He's walking his beat, and he's trying to do as much as he can, but it's just him. And so that's the idea. This world-weary kind of guy that knows the neighborhood is kind of respected by the locals, but not really. It's like they kind of put up with him. Oh, here comes the law type thing. And I thought, okay, that's cool. And then I kind of expanded it a little bit more, and I thought he sounds to me like more like a Texas Ranger, right? Because there's so many Western themes in the Mandalorian. I
Yeah.
thought, where they had vast territories to sort of cover. But if there was trouble, you would the saying was one riot, one ranger. And so they could kick some serious ass if they ever got called in, right? So I kind of played it in that sense, and that he was a guy that knew how to play in the margins because he couldn't be so cut and dry with rules and regulations because he knew that wasn't going to work, and that he would have to work with communities in order to build that trust, and that he was onto something that was, I sort of thought he's one of these guys that's very observant and he's noticing some weird things that are happening and he's trying to put them together. But for whatever reason, because of the area that he's patrolling or something that he did during the rebellion, he's been relegated to the Outer Rim. It's sort of like, okay, yes, you're a veteran, you've done your job, now go away and don't cause any trouble. So we're going to have you patrolling this sector type thing. So I started to build this sort of backstory for him. And I asked Dave questions. I said, so like, what was he part of the Battle of Endor? Was he, did he fight on Jakku? Like all this stuff.
Oh my God, you're speaking Dave's language. He must have been like, this is just like, Dave, like all he wants is someone who understands Star Wars to talk to. He loves it.
Yeah, you'd think that. But he was like, nah, it's, it's a big world. It's a big universe. So he could have, I was like, oh, okay, because in my mind, I was like, what if Carson Teva was this guy that for whatever reason missed all the big battles? Like he was in the wrong place during the Battle of Yavin and he showed up too late. And for Hoth, he got like frostbite or something like he caught a cold and couldn't fly. So he's in a medical frigate. And like for Endor, he had like stomach issues and just couldn't make it to his fighter or whatever. And was like really bitter. And that's why he was out in the Outer Rim. Like he's just this embittered pilot that's just sort of going around.
Because he's a day late and a dollar short on all the things that could
And so he sees something that's going on.
Raise him up in the ranks.
Exactly. And then nobody believes him because like, Carson Teva again, the guy that missed the Battle of Endor because he had the runs.
Oh yeah, the guy that stubbed his foot.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they stubbed his toe.
So I kind of half jokingly pitched that to Dave and he was like, no. So I've learned to just sort of take it if it's a little bit more nebulous and vague in that sense, they can fill in the blanks, and that way you're not beholden to playing it a certain way. We know he served during Alderaan. I don't know when he made that jump to the rebellion. Sometimes I play with the idea that he was part of the Imperial machine. After Alderaan went, he was like, I'm out, goodbye, and joined the rebellion after that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but well,
that would be interesting.
Yeah. It's been done before, but I think it's such like they blew up a planet. They blew up a planet, right? So that would be fun. I ran into Sam Witwer this weekend.
God.
Yeah,
Have you met Sam before?
No, but I was a huge fan of his work, right? And I know
you and Sam you have a lot of similarities.
No, he is so smart, and that's what I love about him.
Yeah.
He's just
so smart
and so passionate about fandom. And I told him he's an inspiration as an ambassador for the Star Wars universe because he loves it so much. And he thinks about it, he inhabits it, and he's so, it's infectious. His love for it. And so I love chatting with him. We were at GalaxyCon in Raleigh, and every moment I had, spare moment, we would sit and just be like nerding out over things.
He talks about it with such glee.
And he's so knowledgeable. That's the other thing too, right? Like he knows the lore.
Yeah.
Right. So, but he was saying too, like, I'd love to chat with you about, Carson Teva's backstory. And it's like, yeah, I would too, because I have no idea really what it is. And it'd be fun to find out. It'd be a lot of fun to find out.
I talk about this sometimes with people because, do you know things? I was talking to my producer about it. Like, I know a lot of stuff about Bo's backstory. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know and I haven't asked. And because I trust enough in Dave that when it's important, he'll tell me.
Yeah.
You know, and it'll add to the story and who she is. And until then, it's not relevant, you know? But it's Sam, God, Sam is amazing. Sam, he creates and paints miniatures, and it's phenomenal. It just like the detail that he puts into it. He just sent me a picture the other day, and he's been like perfecting Bo for a very long time. And he literally sent me a picture, and he's like tinkering with her. And I was like, oh, you added more white to her jetpack. Like he's literally just painstakingly, takes care of these things. I want to ask you actually about your collecting.
Yeah.
Because it started from when you were really little, and you behind you, obviously, it's something that you take very seriously, and you cosplayed. And what is it about it that is so fulfilling for you?
You know, that was my gateway. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of friends. Surprise. It was just, a byproduct of, having to stay home because my parents were always working. So I couldn't just run out of the house or the apartment or whatever. Yeah. And so a lot of my play consisted of Legos and imaginary, like with action figures and creating scenes and whatnot. And so I was very, very, I was in the late 70s, early 80s, I was every advertiser's wet dream. Because any toy that went out, I wanted it, right? Because I wanted to play with it. I love playing with toys. And it was something that I just sort of carried over. And my parents worked very, very hard. And I never really wanted for anything. But there were certain toys that my parents just refused because that's a waste of money. It's like, no, we need to eat. You can't have that toy. But there were some Christmases where I remember I got it was Christmas of '83, and I got Han Solo in the Tauntaun and the Imperial Star Destroyer and the AT-ST, and I got all these action figures, and I almost died because I got the Millennium Falcon too, and it was just this whole. That started my love.
It was a jackpot of a Christmas.
Oh yeah, it must have been a good year at the restaurant, right? And so I just, that's something that has been a part of my life for so long. Is that element of play and make believe. And as I've gotten older too, so like there are phases, cycles, because as I got older, the collecting sort of shifted to collecting comic books and a few action figures here or there. And then, I from high school, when I went to university, I moved away from home, and my parents culled my collection. They just got rid of all of it. They gave it away to all the kids. They're like, "Oh, he's gone. All this stuff is gone." And that was devastating. Yeah. And I was very that hurt because it wasn't just stuff. It was my childhood, right? And
of course it was.
I still loved it.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
That's okay. The only solace I have is they gave it to friends of the family who had younger kids, and so I'm like, okay, it's being used. The toys are being played with. I hope, but then after that, I don't know. So I got to university, and it's like I started collecting a few little things, but my heart really wasn't in it, and it was expensive. And I discovered girls. And so it was like this whole okay, what do you want to spend your money on? And then I started living on my own, and then it was rent and all, life gets in the way. And then basically I got back into collecting after I started getting some serious TV money. And it was just this whole well, what am I going to do? It's like, oh yeah, there's all this really cool stuff I always wanted to get. And I think that's part of what collecting is. A small part of it is you start hunting for the things that have a sentimental or nostalgic value to it. So I started looking for the toys that were given away and trying to reclaim those, right? And then along the way,
I do the same thing.
Right? Yeah,
I do the same thing. Yeah. And
then it just spirals, and then I discovered Hot Toys, and then that was the end. It's just like this whole. I don't know if hold on. If you can see that. See that? I can see her. That's your hot toy. And
there's multiples.
Yeah.
There's two.
Well, because one of them is.
Wait, no, one is one Are they both? No, one is Koska.
Yeah, one is Costco Reed,
Yeah.
and then the other one is Axe.
Is Axe.
Right there. And I got the pleasure
That
of
just
meeting
came out.
Simon as well just recently. But I
But
mean,
isn't he wonderful?
yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing.
I know. Yeah.
But it's this thing where, you know, I got into it and then I was fascinated by the craft of its construction, the details, like you're talking about with Sam, you know, intricately and painstakingly painting the little details, the soft parts, the stitching, the way it fits onto the figures, the accuracy of, like, cosplayers will use Hot Toys as references because there are no good screen caps or whatever, and so they'll refer to those. And it's just this whole thing, and it just, because I love Star Wars and because this is something that is, and I want to build dioramas and maquettes, and I want to take pictures of them and create these whole scenes and whatnot. And it's just, I truly do believe, you know, that saying, we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. And I think that's the thing, and that's what keeps me sort of going. And it's something that I love, and it's harmless, really. I mean, it's a big financial hit, but I don't buy toys in lieu of, you know, paying the mortgage.
The mortgage.
It's like, sorry, I missed the last 2 mortgage statements, baby. But
Oops.
Yeah, that Mandalorian, coven was there, and I really had to get the covert completed.
So does Carson has he has a hot toy, doesn't he?
No. This is
what does he have?
You're open. This is you're opening up a can of worms. Yes.
Because I want to know, like, were you scanned?
Yes.
Like, when you were on set, they took all the pictures and they scanned you.
Yes.
So you have the ability to be turned into one.
Yes.
Am I rubbing it in or something?
No.
But I mean, your character has been in almost as many episodes as Bo.
Yeah. Not quite. But I mean,
like,
they're a little bit
close.
more than, say, the Mandalorian judge, right? Who's got not one, but I think 2 figures. More than the fleet commander, who has 3 figures. I mean, here's a running gag. So I do have a bust from Gentle Giant, a 1/6 scale bust. It's beautiful.
Okay. It's the Gentle Giant one that I'm thinking of.
Which is great. Okay. But he's got no legs. So, like Lieutenant Dan, I got no legs, right?
Got no legs. Now I'm just thinking of, like, I got no legs. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Got no legs. And I have a Black Series helmet, which is awesome.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But I love giving Hasbro a hard time over this.
Let's give him a hard time.
Let's
do it.
You know, Jimmy Kimmel, when he gives the gears to Matt Damon, you know, it's like that whole, once again, we got to bump Matt Damon. For me, it's Hasbro, and it's like, Hasbro, come on, man. Where's my Black Series figure? Where is it? Sam's character, Starkiller, got a re-release, right, of an action figure. It's a 3-pack with Starkiller and 2 Stormtroopers who've already been released. They stuck it in a package, slapped exclusive on it, and sold it for $90, and it sold out, right? And I'm just railing on them. Hasbro, I've only been in, like, 6 episodes across 3 different shows. No, more than that. Oh my God, like 7 episodes across 3 different shows.
You could slap a Carson in a box with anyone, because you've been in scenes with everyone. You could make a 3-pack of Carson, Bo, and Mando.
Yeah.
You could make a 3-pack of Ahsoka, Hera, and you.
Yep.
You could make a 3-pack. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I get it.
But they won't.
I get it.
They won't. And it's the whole, like, hey guys, what's going on here? What is going on? Why no love for Carson? Why no love?
Something cheeky's happening.
Well,
something cheeky.
So I like to give him a hard time.
Good, you should. Did your father? Are your parents still with us?
They are.
Yeah. So your father, what does he think of the fact that you have spare money to blow on
He,
on collectibles. And you're an actor, sir.
I
You're not a
know.
doctor.
He's so proud.
Is he?
Yeah,
Good.
they're my mom, my dad. They are so proud, and honestly, that's every immigrant child's fantasy is to have your parents say, "I'm proud of you," right? You did it, and it took a while for them to sort of come around. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was just like, I mean, we didn't grow up, we didn't grow up rich. We were paycheck to paycheck a lot of times, right? Like hand to mouth, all that stuff. And, it's still for them to see that, I have a home, I have a family. I help support them. So I support my parents now too, right?
Yeah.
And all this stuff.
Wow.
And it's just like, that for me is, that's my job as a son. And to be able to say, no, I'm helping you guys out too. So you don't have to work. So you can relax a little bit. It means the world to me. And their approval means the world as well. And I love that they can see the work that I'm in, that they're proud of it, that they have that social currency where they get to say my son, the actor, and they're very proud of saying that.
Yeah,
it's delightful. It's absolutely delightful.
that's so cool. That's so cool. I love that. This has been awesome. This has been so wonderful. Thank you for I know it's late and I really appreciate it. And
No,
didn't you come in? You came in from baseball, right?
no, we came in. We just flew in from North Carolina, from Raleigh.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Okay.
No, it's
Yes.
honestly, thank you so much for being so accommodating.
Oh my God, of course. Please.
I will burn down forests. I will kidnap pets to be able to be on Katie's podcast.
Aww.
I'm just gonna nerd out for a minute. I've been a huge fan of yours since Battlestar Galactica. I think you're crushing that in everything that I've seen you in. You are such a strong performer, and you are such in real life too. You are so kind, and you're so inspiring, and you are nerd's nerd, which I love. And you find joy in so many things and bring joy to so many people. It has been an absolute honor to be here and to chat with you. So thank you.
Aw, you make me cry. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Hey everyone, welcome to The High Insight. Thank you so much for sticking around. I am really excited. If you're new here, this is where it all just goes to shit. If you come here often, you're welcome. Here's my co-host and producer, who probably at this point doesn't want to be either. Jeff, hi.
You never thank me for being here.
Do I thank you for coming?
Yeah, you never say, I'm glad you're here, Jeff. Thank you.
Well, Jeff, that goes unspoken because I couldn't do this. I would be talking into a vacuum if you were not here. But I actually also really enjoy your company, Jeff.
Well, speaking of enjoying company, I imagine everybody who is still listening right now is in a very good mood because Paul is just delightful to listen to.
Isn't he delightful?
It's just so clear how much he loves what he does and how much fun he's having, and he's just like living the dream. And it's just, he's so pleasant and lovely. And he mentions early, I don't know if anybody missed it, but he mentions early that he used to be much more of an angry person.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard to believe.
It is hard to believe, but I also sort of like, I get it, right? This sort of like, this industry, there's so much that's out of your control in this industry. And it's very easy to get angry at certain things that are out of your control because this is one of those professions where talent and work ethic don't matter. I mean, they really don't. I mean, they obviously are pieces of the puzzle, but they don't guarantee success. And that is a frustrating thing because you can't quantify what it is about someone that becomes successful and what it is about someone that doesn't, if they're both talented. You can't figure out why someone becomes an overnight success and like a legitimate overnight success and why somebody else, I'm talking about myself now, obviously, like works for 27 years and just steadily climbs a ladder. Like I used to joke about how I'm just climbing a ladder. There are people that whiz past me. It's fine. I'm not angry about it because I'm still climbing. But there are times where it's like, Jesus, what do you got to do? What do you got to do?
Yes. Yeah.
So
and
I
mean,
get that.
he has
his
legitimate
anger.
concerns too. I mean, it's tough not being a white person in the industry and all that
It
stuff.
is.
I mean, he's got legitimate reasons to be upset, but it just sounds like
Yeah.
now he's really found a good place with that. And I mean, he's found a lot of success, and you know, he's a great guy. I feel like I could have listened to him for another hour, and we will definitely have to have him back for another
Yeah.
conversation.
We should. I find it really interesting. We've spoken to Paul about it. We spoke to Reka about it. It's one of the things that they both touched on where it's so refreshing to play a character that is just a character and their descriptor is not Korean
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or Indian woman.
Right.
It's just there's a character and you got the part because you were the best person for the part.
As far as I know, there hasn't been some huge backlash or outcry from fans that they didn't cast a white person in these roles. It seems like there's no reason not to cast people of varying different backgrounds and ethnicities and stuff, because it's ultimately that is not what it's about. It's about the characters and the story, and so
It is.
yeah.
It is, absolutely. And I like that it is changing. And like, Paul and Reka both said, it more needs to be done, but it is on the way to being better for people, which is great. Yeah.
And we gotta get everybody talking to Hasbro about getting that Carson action figure.
Why? I think it's hysterical. He
Yeah.
is such a collector. And I love the fact that that he is like, now he's like, well, I have a little extra money now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's
Yeah.
like, and I buy this stuff and I buy this stuff.
Yeah. And it's like, I think I said to you when we actually recorded him, he had one of the best setups that we've ever had. And thankfully now we're on video because everybody got to see his beautiful setup and everything. And he's got a YouTube channel where he has a bunch of unboxing videos and stuff like that on it.
Does he really?
Yeah. Everybody should go
love
check it out. Let me look up real quick what it is.
He legitimately gets giddy and happy about unboxing things. And I love that. I love that for him. I said that to someone the other day and I was like, why am I saying this now? I love that for you.
That's what happens.
Is that?
That's what happens when a woman reaches a certain age.
Fuck you, Jeff.
No, it's just,
Yes, I love that for you, Jeffrey.
Oh, sorry. I was responding to the fact that I opened up his YouTube channel and he started speaking and it freaked me out. But
how many videos does he have?
He's got quite a few. It's at youtube.com/Bitter Asian Dude Inc. INC. Bitter Asian Dude Inc. And it's probably going to be the most joyful page you've ever been on.
He is really just honestly, there are certain people that you spend time with that you can't help but smile and just look at life on the bright side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Paul is one of those people. He is just like, life is good, he's living his dream. And he's a really, really wonderful person. Of course he's Canadian.
I know we haven't done it in a little bit, but I think we really have to not shit on Canadians anymore because every Canadian we've had on the show has been wonderful. And
you say that, Jeff, but I feel like just to keep it going, we should have on a really shitty Canadian, the guy that that alt-right guy from Canada.
I'm gonna quit. I'm quitting. No. I don't want this illusion ruined for me that everybody in Canada is fantastic.
It's true. It's true. And people in the Midwest too, because they're so close. I feel like by proxy that Canada's peeing on them.
Okay. Maybe I take my thank you back.
You know what I mean?
I guess.
If when they have a party, they just...
It's more like the northern states. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, but I'm from central Illinois. I would never consider myself close to Canada, but...
It's true. If you can't see a lake...
Yeah.
You're not...
Yeah. No, it's just
you don't count.
sea of cornfields where I'm from.
Yeah.
So
No, you don't count. You don't count.
Okay, I had one question that I wanted to ask you that we could dig into a little bit before we move on to the mail sack. But
Okay.
so I know you can't say anything about what you know about Bo.
Yeah.
But I was interested because Paul talked a little bit about the process of talking with Dave on the character and how Dave was kind of like, well, I think Dave's exact words to him in this episode were, it's a big universe, because Paul had kind of spun this backstory about Carson and being this sort of guy who missed all the battles and everything. But Dave, wouldn't really entertain that idea, which in my mind made me think he wants to leave it open because they have possibly more stories to tell with him, which would be great.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, and I know you can't tell me specifics, but I'm curious, when you first were approached about doing Bo, did you have conversations about the character that were in depth, or was it kind of a, we'll see what happens?
You mean live action Bo or animated Bo?
I mean both, really. I mean, I'm particularly intrigued when you were first brought onto it. I mean, both Katee, as a fan of Star Wars, getting asked to be in Star Wars and then being, introduced to this character. What was that process like? And,
So the animated version, no, I didn't ask any questions. That came into my life. We've talked about this a little bit. Came into my life where I was sort of in that habit of, as an actress, being seen, not heard, not wanting to ask too many questions, not wanting to get in the way, don't be difficult, just be happy that you're here. And I was so excited to be in Star Wars that I just dropped it and was never ask them any questions, just do what they need me to do. And if they call me and ask me to do more, just be happy, because I was. And very similarly, when I got asked to do live action, I was a little scared to do anything wrong for fear that it would result in me not being asked back again. And so the conversations that I have had with Dave have been largely just as two friends talking about Bo and backstory and who she is and where she's been and where she's going, things like that. And then I think on, as well with John on set was all about, really focused on the moment in the scene, as opposed to a grander scale. I do that kind of backstory for myself because, I try to make choices. I think as an actress or an actor, the goal is to just make choices. Choices are interesting. You know what I mean? If you see someone who doesn't break down a script and just sort of does what's on the page, which is very similar to what I probably used to do when I was younger, and just goes to work, memorized, says the words and, pretends. That's what I used to do. I think as I've gotten older and I've realized it's much more interesting to watch somebody act when they've made choices. You don't even need to know what the choices are.
Yeah.
They need to know what the choices are. I can't remember who it was that we had on the show who said that much, it was Troy.
Yeah.
Troy Baker came on the show and he was talking about a director who they were doing The Last of Us. No, they were doing something. I don't remember what it was. And the director was talking to a young kid, and the young kid, the director said, what do you think happened here? And the young kid answered, and the director went, that's it. Do that. And walked away. And then Troy Baker, it was The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And then Troy Baker walked up to the director and was like, yo, man, I completely disagree with what you just said to that kid. That's not what he wants. And the director goes, what? What do you mean? And he was like, well, you just said to the kid, this kid, I agree with you. That is what he wants. Then the director goes, oh yeah, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as he knows, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. That's all that matters. As long as I know, even if it's not accurate, it's still interesting to watch, And that's what Paul's done with his backstory. That's the whole reason you create a backstory, is because that is interesting in the eyes. That is interesting. Your backstory frames how you look at a person on set, as the character, how you move through a scene, how you pick something up. that backstory dictates how all of that happens. And that makes things interesting to watch.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I wish you could tell me more about the things you actually know that you can't tell me, but
Could you imagine if I just made it all up? And like that's Katie's backstory
Yeah. I mean,
that I know,
yeah.
but I don't know shit.
Has any
I'm
of
just
your
kidding.
backstory ever actually aligned with anything that actually happened
On Battlestar all the
on
time.
Battlestar? Yeah.
Yeah. Because the writers started asking
Yeah.
what my backstory was. And, we started talking about, they would be like, what do you think about this? And I'd be like, oh, well, let me tell you. And then it would show up.
That's great though. I mean, because you're living in that character's head full time, where the writers are living in multiple characters' heads.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
a smart move as a writer to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we get into the mail sack?
Let's do it.
Mail sack. We're going to the mail sack. Mail sack. Why are we calling it mail sack?
I love the slow death every time. Just the slow death of it.
Yes.
Guys, let's get into the mail sack. Greg says, it's fun to get more insights into your BSG friends. When Michael Trucco joined Battlestar, I was incredibly jealous of the scenes you got to do with him. To find out that he's an amazing person in real life just adds to that. During the post-episode discussion, you talked about how Kara and Anders could get married in the middle of the night and who could perform the ceremony. My headcanon is that they had to get a priest or priestess. That is due to a line Kara says to Lee when they're boning down. Lee suggests she divorce Anders. She says, marriage is a sacrament. This is just bending the rules. So marriages in that world are probably religious in nature.
Speaking of backstory.
Speaking of backstory, yeah, I mean, I think that anyone who's watched Battlestar Galactica acknowledges the fact that there are multiple religious undertones in that show. I mean, it is what the show is about. It's one of the things, you know. So absolutely, it's a religious thing. I also don't remember any of that.
I mean, it's like 20 years ago at this point, close to it.
I mean, I remember Lee and Kara having sex finally, and him saying he loves her. And then I remember him waking up the next morning and her being married to Anders. I don't remember them actually. Could you imagine? I
remember watching that and I was just like, fuck. It's very Starbuck though. Very self-destructive and
is it?
Yeah, because I mean Starbuck and always felt, I mean, to me, she felt like she wouldn't allow herself to be happy or to have things she wanted, and that her whole relationship with Lee was sort of like the epitome of that.
I think so too. I think that was, I'm glad that that's what that you think that as well. That was one of the things that I said to the writers to everyone at the end. Please do not have this woman walk off into the sunset holding hands with Lee Adama. Like, please do not give that her end.
Yeah.
She will never be happy.
Yeah.
That's not who she is.
So they just had her walk off into the sunset.
They basically had her, well, she was already dead.
She was something.
And whoever she was at the end was meant to be with Anders. And that's why she said, I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
That's why I believe she ended up with him. I believe that whoever she was, because Starbuck was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Starbuck was gone. That person that loved Lee Adama was gone.
Yeah.
Anyway, I need to watch the show. Jeff, cloud seeding is actually
like
real.
Before you continue, tell us how Jeff spells his name.
Geoff.
Because it becomes important in a moment.
Okay. Cloud seeding is actually real, Katee. You've been living a lie this whole time.
So we were talking about chemtrails and all that stuff recently, and conspiracy theorists and all that stuff, and I mean, sorry to take the lead on this, and if you'd rather respond,
Please take the lead, Jeff. Please take the lead. I don't know if I can talk. I don't know if I can acknowledge flat Earth right now.
I just want to say, and it's also going to be hilarious when you read the rest of this email. Cloud seeding is a thing, yes, but chemtrails are not cloud seeding. Chemtrails are not chemtrails. They're condensation trails from jets. But anyway, yes, cloud seeding's real. You can make clouds go away and make them rain, but it's not done with domestic air flights.
Yes, and also cloud seeding is I feel like people think that like that the government is like cloud seeding to like kill us.
Right.
You know, like it's part of the, I know cloud seeding exists. Like it's existed a long time. My mind is not blown by that, Jeff with a G. They even use it in the new Twister movie. I know your mind is blown right now. Wait until I tell you about donut Earth theory. Fuck me.
I don't even know what that one is.
Stop. Please look it up. Stop listening to Jeff. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's not even a real Jeff. He's an associate Jeff at best. We might let him hang out with us, but he has no vote in the Jeffdom. The seniority goes like this: Jeff with a G, Jeff with a J, and 2 Fs, and Jeff with a PH. I trust you've been significantly enlightened.
That's such a Geoff thing to say.
It is a Geoff thing to say. And Geoff, I know that they seed clouds. I just don't think the government's trying to fucking kill us with them. I think that we should also look up what the donut theory is. What is the donut Earth theory?
Well, this is according to Google's AI, so I don't know if you believe this or not, but the donut Earth theory, also known as the torus Earth theory, proposes that Earth is shaped like a torus or a donut. There are multiple theories that support this idea. I've never heard of this. Is this like flat Earth, but donut Earth? I don't understand how that would even be possible.
I mean, Earth is shaped like a donut hole.
That's very true. It's true. And is a donut hole a donut? A form of donut?
It's a discard.
Right. But if you were to categorize donuts, because like you have like jelly filled, you've got cake.
Right. Like what is a donut to you?
Would you put a donut hole in the overall category of donuts?
No.
No? What would you put it in?
I mean,
Just
yeah, of course I would. I think it's all pastry. But I think if I say who wants donuts, I would go into a donut shop and I would probably buy bear claws and apple fritters and
but
maple
would you
bars
find donut holes at that donut shop?
Probably.
So then are they not a type of donut?
Well, yeah, of course they're a type of donut, but like I wouldn't
So all I'm trying to say is if the Earth is round and shaped like a donut hole, then therefore it is shaped like a type of donut. And therefore the donut theory of Earth is true.
This is how people go down rabbit holes, Jeff, and start believing shit.
Yeah, well, it's at the very end.
Is how they is literally how they figured this out.
Yeah.
Also, don't Google tentacle porn.
Oh, no, you don't have to Google it. You don't have to Google it. Just DM.
Like, don't do it. Don't do it. It is a rabbit hole you can't get out of. You guys, so based on my calendar, I'm going on vacation. Based on my calendar, I am going to Canada.
Oh, well, love
my
Canada.
child just got his passport. We're really excited about it. I hope they let me in. And I will continue to love Canada and also shit on it at the same time.
No appearances coming up?
No, nothing. The first appearance, thanks for keeping me on schedule there, Jeff. My first appearance is October 19th in Cincinnati.
Great.
Cincinnati. Then after that, I'm going to be at the Battlestar Convention the week after that, and a Texas convention, and Wisconsin, and Nashville. So you guys, I have 5 conventions in a row: Cincinnati, Chicago, Texas, Wisconsin, Nashville.
Maybe I'll come to Nashville with you. My family lives in Nashville.
Do they really?
Yeah, I got brother and sister, niece and nephew, my mom, they all live in Nashville.
Really?
Hmm.
There's also a lot of people we could interview in Nashville too.
Let's go.
So let's do it. Let's do it. Jared Padalecki's there.
Nice.
No, wait, they're in Austin.
All right. Well, road
Close.
trip.
All right. I always get Nashville and Austin confused because they're both
similar.
like liberal places and Republican.
They're very similar. They're very
They
similar.
are,
Both
right?
really, really cool cities.
Okay, we got to go. You guys, stop talking. We'll see you next Tuesday, and that's what's up.